The following is a conversation with Joshua Hubbard. Joshua Hubbard is a YouTuber. He has a channel on YouTube called Joshua Hubbard. He's a runner. He's also a veteran, and he's going to be running the Marine Corp Marathon, as am I. And we have the same goal, which is to break 3 hours in the marathon. So this is my conversation with him about that.
Don't forget to subscribe for the channel.
I did want to ask you, on your channel, you cover a lot of running, but I've noticed you don't do a lot of hybrid athlete training. And no disrespect to Nick Bear, but if they made like a run influencer calendar, I think you could be the December picture.
On Christmas.
Is that something that's intentional, or do you just not include it because you just don't take the camera to the gym or any of the work? I'm assuming you work out a lot.
Part of it is intentional. It's weird because most people don't know this, but like lifting probably takes up as much time in terms of like passion as running. It's not like I like running more, or like for me, I always tell my friend, you've probably seen him on the channel, Harsh. He comes out and runs with me quite often. And I always tell him like I use the funny saying, like lifting for life, or like the whole idea is like, I didn't grow up a runner. I'm probably never going to be in like the Olympics or anything super competitive. I'm not going to win like a major race. Like this isn't going to be a professional outlet for me. So again, I got into running because of the idea of trying to be healthier. Like that's where it started. And then I started to really enjoy it. And then I kind of went down the rabbit hole. But weightlifting is kind of that same thing of like, how do I make myself the best person possible so that as I age, I can be there for my kids? And a lot of that comes out of the fact that, you know, my father passed away in 2021. He was someone who grew up, he was like a junior judo Olympian. So he was like a champion in judo at the age of 9. Then my dad boxed in the Army. He tried to make the Olympics for wrestling in his 20s. So he was an extremely healthy, athletic person. And then watching that decline to him then passing away from poor health decisions just really led to me looking at my son at the time. We only had my son. He never got to meet my daughter. But looking at my son and just seeing a similar trajectory of someone who like grew up wrestling and then went in the Marine Corps. And like the Marines, like the military is one of those, like once you get out of boot camp, the choice on being fit is really up to you. I was in the infantry, so like you didn't really have the time to like worry about that. We would do like push-ups and stuff, and like that's where I kind of got into fitness. One of the guys I served with was really into weightlifting and like bodybuilding, and he's kind of taught me the basics. But then I kind of let that go and let it slide over time. I was already into running when my like dad passed away, but I just thought like, how can I be the healthiest version of myself? Like how can I make sure that I don't repeat the errors that my father made and leave my son like alone in his 30s because I was too selfish to not take care of myself. On the hybrid part, yeah, it's intentional. I don't feel like I know enough in the lifting space, and I don't think it's exciting enough that somebody wants to take, like, to me, I would way rather go watch someone run 24 miles and like answer a Q&A or like your video that came out today than watch someone be like, watch me lift for an hour. Like Nick Bear, he looks like he lifts. So someone's more likely to take advice from him because he's just like a complete beast. And then you got scrawny old me who like, no matter how hard I try, like I can't put on any muscle. Like there's that side of my brain too of like, I know you should just make the content anyways, but it's intentional. For sure.
Yeah, what I eat in a day, my kids' Frosted Flakes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like what I like. People have asked me to make those videos, and like I'm hesitant because it's just like it's gonna be boring.
Have you gotten your run in today?
Yeah, I did 70 minutes easy.
And how many days in a row does that make this run?
Today was day 227.
And so what is the driving force for this run streak?
So yeah, the run streak it started last year, roughly July timeframe. I'm very like type A with a lot of stuff. And so pretty much as I'm thinking out the year, like I already have 2025 for running pretty much figured out in terms of racing and all of that. And obviously I know things can change and I'm pretty fluid in the moment. But I like to have like a plan kind of laid so that I at least know like the direction I'm going. So last year, 23, around July timeframe, I had started to think about maybe setting 2024 as the year of races where I race the Marine Corp Marathon series. Because having been in the Marine Corps, I've had quite a few people tell me like, oh, you should race them. It's like the People's Marathon. It's a great marathon. And it actually started sooner than this. There was a time, I believe it was in 2021, I had tried to do something similar where I honored those I served with who fell in combat or veteran suicide after, where I would write their names on my shoes during the run streak. Because I had quite a plethora of shoes at the time. And so I wrote a bunch of names on the shoes. The problem was, one, you couldn't see it really. And then two, like the foam would wear off pretty quickly. And so like the Sharpie would rub off. And so it was one of those that it didn't really work. Like the execution of the plan didn't work as well as I thought. So I kind of shelved it. But the idea for that came from, I'd been running for roughly a year and I wanted to do something to start to highlight more than just myself with my running, but like how can I start to make this more than just about me? And so that's where it kind of came from, was like it was a place where I knew it's people that I care about dearly, and the organization that I'm primarily highlighting, the Semper Fi Fund, they had done 2 reunions for us in 2016 and then 2019 where they allowed, well, they basically reached out. So someone organized it from our battalion, so 2-7. I basically got an email in 16 from Semper Fi Fund being like, hey, we're going to send you to Big Bear in California, to this like resort. It's all paid. Just tell us what airport you're flying out of. So I got to see a bunch of friends basically like a decade after being out of the Marine Corps. It was wild because it was one of those where like, it's really hard to like explain or relate to people like what I experienced while I was in being like deployed to both Iraq and Afghanistan. And so going back to those reunions was like we had basically never left each other. And so it was a great experience. And it was one of those of like, I'd always wanted to find a way to give back to the Semper Fi Fund. So 2021, I tried the shoe thing, doesn't really work. So I shelve it. And then fast forward to 2023, July, like I said, I had started to think out like, what did my race schedule look like for 2024? And I thought maybe this is the year I finally do the Marine Corp Marathon, and I will use Semper Fi Fund and like the Wounded Warrior Project, 2 organizations that I know have worked with people I served with or their families in the past, to kind of highlight, to donate to. And so originally the plan was to run all of my runs in a weighted vest. I'll do every single one of my runs all year. Like I'll take breaks, I won't run streak, but I'll run every single one of my runs in the 20-pound vest. I'll race in the 20-pound vest. And then the more research I did, the more I realized I was going to be like, okay, goodbye to my back and knees for the rest of my life. Like there's no way. Most people have only really done like you have a few outliers who do it, but most only do 5K at most. And so then the next thought was, okay, maybe I run with a flag and I'll write all the names of everyone I served with on this flag and I'll run streak. Like that'll be it. And I'm one of those, like everything's got to be extreme, right? So the weighted vest was because I had already done a run streak. So like, why do that again? I was like, I'll just do the weighted vest. But then once I realized like a sounder mind decided against it, I was like, okay, well then I'll do the run streak. And I'll do the Marine Corps series. I'll do all 5 races, right? I'll do the 17.75K, the half, the Quantico 12K, the full marathon, and then the turkey trot to get like I'll kind of do the full gamut. And then my wife and I were talking about it, and it was like, no, that's just too much. You'll be away from the kids too much. Yeah, I mean, like it's a lot. Mm-hmm. And so part of that reason is the Semper Fi, or the Marine Corps Marathon, has like a 5 medal series you can do. I think it's like the Semper Challenge series. And then they have a Semper Fi series for just the 3. And so then I landed on the 3 races of the 17.75K, the half, and the marathon. So all of that was the idea of, I'll make the Marine Corps race series like this the year that I kind of really highlight those fallen brothers. I'll run the Marine Corps Marathon series because that kind of ties into all of that. And then the run streak was just a way to like make the most of this. It's a weird thing where when I started, I don't really think I understood the gravity of like what I was doing. Like I knew I wanted to do something, but then once I actually started the run streak and started carrying the flag and like thinking about them every day, it's like a weird closure of like moving on from that, because there's a lot of grief that comes with all of those experiences and just, you know, survivor's guilt. And then also just an outlet to be able to speak about it, because it's been, you know, I got out in 2009, so it's been over 10 years now. And it's one of those that I don't really share much about it. And so this was a way to like share a part of my life and experiences I've had while still honoring those I served with, who most other than the families have probably forgotten about.
No, and it's like, and for context, all these races that Marine Corps puts on, are they all in DC, in that area?
Pretty much the Virginia area. So the
Virginia.
17.75K is right outside Stafford, Virginia, or like in Stafford, Virginia. And then the Marine Corps half was in Fredericksburg. The Quantico 12Ks actually ran on Quantico base. And then the Marine Corps Marathon's in DC. And then I believe the Turkey Trot is in DC as well.
Okay.
But I'm not
And you,
really
and
sure
you
on
are
that one.
not anywhere near that area. You don't live near DC.
No, it's roughly, I drive to all my races within a certain distance, and they're all about 9 hours. So
Yeah,
it's like a
within the
9-hour drive.
continental United States.
Yeah.
You'll
There's-
drive. You'll drive there.
Yeah, I did Duluth. So I did Grandma's Marathon, and I drove to that. That was 12 hours. And I think that's the limit.
Going back to the run streak, like how do you work in your training? Because you're training for all of these races with the run streak. Most training plans are probably 5 or 6 days a week anyway. Do you have to make any adjustments to make those work?
Yeah, so there's a few things I do. So actually, when I set out with the run streak, the idea was to do every recovery day that was set in the plan. So like if I'm doing a base building plan or the actual like marathon plan or like a half marathon plan, any day that was a scheduled rest day, I would run 3 miles because when I was in the Marine Corps, the PFT. So it was one of those that I was like, okay, on the rest days, I'll do 3 miles. I actually just shifted that, I think this week or last week, to where the rest days I'm only going to do 1 mile because the mileage is getting a little higher. And compared to half marathon training, there's more mileage I'm putting on in one consistent bunch compared to the half marathon. So it's one of those that to make sure I don't sacrifice the goal of the sub 3 in the marathon, I want to make sure on the rest days I'm doing as little as possible to make sure that I'm not taking away from those days that I need to actually be putting in good quality work. The shift isn't so much more the run streak. It's more like figuring out around family and travel. So it's really being like intentional, which is why I kind of shifted to that 1 mile for the day. Was just like, I need to start being really intentional because if I want to make the sub 3 happen, I don't want to show up on race day just spent.
Yeah, no. And on that note, which I wanted to shift to, and the reason why I wanted to talk to you, I wanted to talk to you for many reasons. Nanotubers together, the dad life, both runners, both running Marine Corps Marathon, both on a sub 3 journey I've been on a sub 3 journey maybe a year and a half for a little while. You yourself on a sub 3 journey. So my hopes is that anybody watching this can be like, hey, I'm on a sub 3 journey. I want to learn information. And where do I get all of my pertinent information but YouTube? How long have you been on a sub 3 journey? What inspired you to want to run a sub 3? How did it all begin for you?
I will say, like, that saying, ignorance is bliss. Like, ignorance is what got me to want to run a sub 3. This will be my 5th attempt at the sub 3. The first attempt was in 2021 at the Detroit Free Press Marathon. Back to like the whole running journey and starting in 2020. I knew nothing about running. I didn't grow up a runner. When I say we ran 3 miles in the Marine Corps, that was pretty much the only, like you ran in the Marine Corps for morning PT, but like I wasn't a runner. You didn't know what you were doing. When you ran the 3 miles, I just ran as fast as I could until the wheels fell off and then you just try and finish. I never really raced. So from 2020 to 2021, I started in June of 2020. I didn't know anything, right? I would go out every single day. I had a pair of Pegasus. I would go out every single day and just run. We had this like 6-mile loop at my in-laws' house that I would just basically do every single day. No idea of pace. I literally ran with like my iPhone with the Nike Run Club to track. And then eventually I bought an Apple Watch because I told my wife like it was unsafe to carry the phone. And then in that spring, I met another run streaker from Detroit, my friend Jason, Chasing Jason. He was like, hey, you should come out to this run club. We run 313. It'd be great. So I went there. It was cool because like day 313 of the run streak was the opening of the season for We Run 313. They do a 2-mile Tuesday. So it's like a very inviting group where the run club has this idea of basically trying to get more people into running. You'd run a mile, clap everyone in, take a picture, rest, and then take a mile back. And there I met some friends, some really good friends who people might know in like more the IG space. But my friend Lance Woods, Joe Robinson, they're both the co-founders of We Run 313. And then Tommy runs as well. And then Aaron Barnett, so Aaron Worldwide. they were all running Glass City. One of the things I've always wanted, even before I was a runner, like I have some bucket list things that have kind of always existed, like doing a full Ironman. And then the New York City Marathon has always been one of those, like if I were to die tomorrow, like what's one thing I would regret not doing? And it's like one of those bucket list items was the New York City Marathon. Don't ask me why. But in 2011, I once submitted for the lottery, and I was basically just going to show up on race day with no training and just run it. Because, you're young, you can just do it. But I didn't get in. And then that was it. Like I never thought about it again. The reason I picked a marathon was because, Tommy, Lance, and Joe had all run a marathon. I didn't know any better. So like, again, that ignorance is bliss. And then I was like, I'll just run a sub 3. You know what I mean? Like it was just, I'll BQ on my first time. Like there was no real understanding of like how intense the marathon actually is, how underprepared I really was. Like it was just one of those of like, I can do it. It's easy. You know what I mean? Whatever. I do 6 miles a day. And so I downloaded the Run with Hale app, trained and did the Run with Hale training. And it was one of those that like every distance I ran beyond like 10 miles was like the longest I'd ever run. So there's one thing that happened in this race too. That's another thing about like how I kind of approach racing in my channel, which we can get into later. But we were at the half marathon point. And I was feeling good, but like I didn't know if I could keep it up for another half. Someone next to me was like, man, I'm already hurting. And this guy turns around in front of us and he's like, if you're hurting now, you'll never make it. And I was like, and then from there, that's all that sat in my head for the rest of the time. Get to mile 14. I'd never taken my endorphin pros past like 10 miles. And by mile 14, they felt like bricks. 16, the wheels completely fell off. And then I basically jogged the rest of the way in. That kind of set me on the course of like realizing like, okay, if I'm going to get serious about this, like 3 is now the goal. Like that was what ingrained sub 3 as the goal was like, I ran a 3:17:05 and I was like, okay, so it's doable. Like I was holding pace pretty well up until 16. I think I can do this. I immediately went and started doing all the research on like what I needed to do to get there. That sent me down that rabbit hole of like doing all the research to do the sub 3. And so that's where that all kind of comes from. It comes from this like accumulation of being ignorant and then having everything like implode to the point where it's like embarrassing. And I realized like some of that was like not good, but creating a fire to like have a drive to like, okay, this is going to happen at some point. It might not be the next marathon, but eventually I will get it. And like, I'll figure out the puzzle.
Yeah. Did you have a watch for your first marathon, or were you still using the Nike Run Club app? Because it is a rite of passage for every beginning runner starts. That's where we all start.
I actually had Garmin and then I switched to Polar because I wanted I think I had the chest strap or whatever. So I ran with the Polar M2 or I don't know, something like that.
I'm going to age myself here on Facebook, Garage, whatever place, something. I got a old Garmin and I was really confused when I went around the block with it because it seemed to be inaccurate because my Nike app was obviously had me going faster. So I was like, this watch is broken. I don't know. It's not where it's too slow. It thinks I'm slower than I actually am. But then I didn't know. I set it to go off every quarter mile because I didn't know that like every mile. It's like if it tells me every quarter mile, then I know where I am quicker. And then I couldn't just look at my pace or whatever. And so I had that and I didn't know track mode existed and I didn't know you could program workouts. So like all the data from my first couple of years of running, I can't even trust. I don't even know. And then I can't even read it. So every quarter mile, like what did I run? Like,
yeah. So you actually look like you got worse as a runner over time because your speeds were faster and then they slow down.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, this it's broken, you know? I eventually did get a Garmin 245. I did get the track app and then now all is well. Now, so like when you run these marathons, are you just focused on pace the entire time? Are you focused on effort? Are you focused on heart rate? Do you look at any data or are you just going on pace?
Yeah, it's primarily pace. So I'm aware of everything that's going on, but I don't let it dictate how I'm racing because it's a race. So like, since it's the goal race, it's one of those, like when I was in Duluth, Grandma's, I think I blew up at mile 18 on that one. Like my heart rate, like someone in YouTube who had been tracking me for that race had said like, I saw your heart rate hit like 180 or something. I can't remember. Somewhere along the line, they were like, yeah, your heart rate hit 180 pretty early. And like, so I knew that it wasn't going to be your goal. Like you weren't going to hit it. So like, I'm aware of everything that's going on, but I don't let it dictate what's happening. Just like in Philly, where I came into that race having coming off being sick, I knew what was going on. And there was even a point where I ran with my friend Danny Runs Philly and then Aaron Mall, who we met during the race. And at one point we had all kind of chatted about like our heart rates were a little high. But I go into every race with two goals. One, hit the splits and try and get whatever goal I set out for. And so like leave it all out there as much as possible. And then two is have fun and thank every person I can along the way, because without the volunteers and the people there spectating, like this wouldn't happen. So it's one of those, because, you know, I get a lot of people who will comment saying like, oh, imagine how fast you'd be if you didn't take the GoPro, or like you didn't talk to people. And it's like, I've met so many friends through races and had better experiences because of having that outlook than just being like, it's all about the pace, baby. Like, I just need to get that PR so that I can celebrate by myself. Like, I'd rather celebrate with friends, even if I miss the goal, than that. So like, those are the two goals every single race. That's all I go into. And I kind of make a joke about it on the channel, but it's true, is like the first goal is to PR. The second goal is to just finish with a smile on my face.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think someone mentioned something about you lose 45 seconds over the course of the marathon with the weight of the selfie stick and the GoPro. And I'm like, yeah, I know I'd be probably a little faster if I brought it. For Houston, I didn't bring it. That was my PR, 3:02:24. And then I did a revenge marathon 7 weeks later, flat course, the Woodlands. They come in, they're so evil. They come in right after. The Woodlands is just north of Houston, and it's also flat like Houston. And they just come in with their discount right after the Houston Marathon to pick up all the people who are like trying to do the revenge marathon or whatever. And so... But then, like, the Wednesday before the Saturday race, you know, I could just feel it in my head. And I was like, allergies or something in my pace was like 15 seconds slower. And I was like, no, I haven't been sick. And, like, I can't even remember when, you know. So, yeah, we've got. So what was the progression? You said you have 5 attempts. So, like, what were the times? How have they improved? And how close have you gotten to breaking 3 thus far?
So I went backwards a bit. So the Detroit Free Press, I did 3:17:05. I was run streaking, you know, so day 500 was that race. So my first race ever was on day 500. Then my dad passed away that December. And I did one of those where, you know, you always hear about people who are like, oh, my mother passed away or my father passed away or like someone close to me passed away, and like I found painting or like I found running, like I found an outlet to kind of cope. And I was like, well, running will be that outlet. Like, you know, it's already like running for me. I was actually talking to a friend recently who's a family court judge. And so he's seen some like horrific things over the years. And he had mentioned, he's like, I have a feeling running is more than just about like physical health for you. And like he was spot on. Like there's a mental aspect of just being able to kind of like sit with things that, like I said, are hard to share with others. And so I was like, running will be that thing. It already is that thing. And so I tried to keep the run streak going after my dad passed. It was like sometime in January or something like that. I can't remember when, but it was day 651. My wife and I tried to move our treadmill down the stairs by ourselves. Terrible idea. If you're at home and you're thinking about moving a treadmill by yourselves, don't do it. The belt was like super heavy and I was literally stuck on the stairs holding it, and I ended up injuring my hamstring. So I kind of tried to push through that because it wasn't too bad. And there was a day that I was out on the run and I just like completely fell apart. I was like a mile into my run and I just like stopped and I walked home. Like everything kind of fell apart for me. And I thought, well, I'm like halfway through training. Like I'm still going to do the Glass City Marathon, which is in Toledo. That was in April. I had been training for like a 6:20. So like I said, I came back with like the full revenge of like, I'm not only going to break sub 3, I'm going to break it. Like it was one of those, like I really had to be broken down on like the ignorance of the marathon, because it was like, I'm not going to break sub 3. I'm going to smash sub 3. And so I trained for 6:20. I was just crushing it on all my training, but slowly things were like compounding of like, I should have stopped the day my dad died and I should have just taken a break altogether. I should have deferred. So I show up to Glass City. I run with my friend Harsh for like the first 10K, and then I take off. By mile 11, I was literally walking. I finished that race in like 3:29:30. It's the worst marathon I've ever had. I just remember that day thinking like, I'm done for like a while. Like I'm just done. That was like the accumulation of me being just too hard-headed to realize like I should have stopped when my dad died, and I should have like reassessed everything. And so I took a complete break, and then I ended up running the Freep half, I believe, that fall. with no goal in mind. I kind of just like trained. I trained like 4 weeks for it, but like I kind of just like took everything away from that. So I did the free path, had an excellent time doing that. I ran with my buddy Aaron, who was training for the New York City Marathon to run sub 3, had a great time. And so like it kind of reignited that like, okay, maybe I go for the marathon again. Then I was looking at like, when can I run? Grandma's was on the docket. And so I thought, oh, that would be a fun run. Like that'd be cool. I want to run a marathon in every state eventually, hopefully. And so I was like, I can knock Minnesota off the list. So I did Grandma's. And that I ran in like a 3:11. So again, at mile 18, the wheels fell off. That was another one where like Grandma's, the pacer actually even dropped. So I ran with the pacer and we were running hot that entire race. Like to the point where the only time we were running this, so if you're running with a 3 pace, you want to run about a 650. The only time we were running 650 was when we were running the uphill. So that's dangerous. Grandma's was in June. And then I ran Philly in November. Yeah, November. That one was a 3:08. Something. So 3:08's the closest I've gotten to the sub 3. But in every single one of those, like the other thing about Philly that like most people don't know because I haven't really shared it, I got sick the week before. It's probably the sickest I've been in a really long time, to one of those where I was like, I don't even know if I could finish in like 4 hours. Like I was really contemplating like how fit I would be for the race. And so I was like, well, I'm still going. I'm not going with my family. Like my family never comes with me to races because it's just too much. I was like, well, I'll make the most of it. So like I did the touristy thing of Philly and kind of went all over Philly, walked a ton. And so I like blasted my legs prior to the race. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up running a 3:08. So there's always that like lingering, like maybe if I had done this different, I would have it, but it still is like elusive to this point. But
yeah,
until now, we're getting it in October.
Yeah, yes, we are. I was talking to Kafuzi, I think, one time, and it was like, or maybe it was a live stream. It all kind of goes together because I listen to a live stream and it's like right in my ear. But he was like, so many attempts at like sub 3. When you're first in the fitness that's about sub 3, all of the things need to line up in order for you to, like, if you have a bad weather day, if you're getting a little bit sick, if you're there, you might just like, it only takes a little bit to kind of knock you out of there. It's almost like you have to be in sub 255 shape and you can handle anything that kind of comes your way. So I relate. I ran a 1:23:58 half that I trained for, and I was like, oh, sign me up. That means I can run a sub 3. 6 weeks later, I'll go do it. And I ran a 3:05:27, and it was a well-run race, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I got a McMillan plan, did it for Buffalo, flew to the East Coast. It starts at 6:30, which means, you got to be up at 4:30, which is like 3:30 my time. I never wake up at 3:30 Central Time. Yeah. I walked around Buffalo with my wife everywhere. We stayed in an Airbnb. There's no central AC, so the windows are open. My throat hurts. I'm like, it was just terrible. I fumbled the taper so hard. And then of course I got dressed up like Forrest Gump, and I was like, I'm gonna run it in a costume, like the balls. I don't know.
And injury to insult. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not that brave.
Yeah, I was haunting the marathon, and
I was ignorant going into it, but not that
ignorant. No, I was straight disrespectful, and I got it handed to me. I ran a 3:13. So then that's why I was like, okay, I really focused on Houston and hired a coach. And I think that he was like, oh, you're running too much with 45, 50 miles. He's a great guy. And he got me a lot faster, but he reduced my mileage way down. And then we started over from scratch. And I think if I would have kind of kept that volume, I would have been able to probably hold that pace. And the Revenge Marathon didn't work. But I think my fitness has moved up a few notches. And looking at your running, you did a blue jean mile in what time?
A 5:01.
A 5:01 in blue jeans, man. That fitness is there.
Yeah, we'll see. Because then I just did DNF of 5K. So
yeah, but after you PR'd a 5K, so I'm not a Jack Daniels V. I don't have it memorized. But you ran a 5K PB this summer, right?
Yeah, it was 17:45.
Yeah, if you
and I actually think that's a little slow. I'll say that, because when I crossed the line, the clock was faster than that for sure. But for some reason, sometimes those official times get wonky on you.
Yeah. So the only thing that I'm worried about, actually, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to the marathon again, but it's kind of like after some marathon training is like getting too ambitious and greedy. Like say I would get in 252 shape, but I'm like 250. 249 just looks a little bit better, and then getting like too aggressive with it early on, especially because there is 200 feet of elevation in the first 5K at the Marine Corps. So
yeah, that's not what I'm worried about. I'm more worried about what you said before of like you've already got it, but like trying to stretch an inch into a mile is like my strategy going into the Marine Corps Marathon. And I've told my wife this, for me, the race doesn't start till mile 20. And it's like, I'm going to ride with the sub 3. As long as that pacer is holding right, like I'm going to be really aware of that. I'm not taking any more than what's been given, because right now the goal is just sub 3. I can think about sub 250, 240, whatever you want to call it next.
yeah.
On the next time. Like right now, it's like just that's been the goal. Now this will be the 5th attempt. And so there's no need to get greedy on it. Like finish it. If I finish it feeling great, cool. That means I can dance at the finish line. Like for me, it's not about like extracting as much as possible. It's like just extracting that sub 3. And so for me, it's like that's the plan, is like you don't know what the marathon has in store. There is quite a bit of elevation. The funny thing is we think about races so like linear, like it's binary. It's one or the other. You have no idea how you're going to feel that day. Because there's been so many days where I've woken up and it's like on a long run and it's like, if today was the race, I would be sub 3. Like I got it. Like I'm flying. And then you show up to race day and it's just like, I don't know, you wake up and maybe you don't feel so great. And like you said about the Kofuzi thing, if you have like a very small room to work with, like there's a small percentage to work with in terms of like, if I miss it by this much, like I miss it completely. So a degree of variability. If you have a small degree of variability to work with, like your chances, you know what I mean, the odds of you making it are going to be a lot slimmer, because you can't control all the variables like the weather. I mean, there's just so many things that come into play when you're like visualizing it on all your long runs of like seeing yourself cross the line with like 2:59, 59 on the clock. That's another reason I think, because I get a lot of comments or negativity towards like, I'll be like, it doesn't matter. And people are like, why did you say you're doing this goal if it doesn't matter? Like they get so angry about it. But it's like, because at the end of the day, there's bigger things than it. And like for me, it always gets back to that, like if I can just help change someone's life the way someone changed mine by like watching the content and saying like, I can do that. Like that's all that matters to me. Again, finishing with a smile on my face. It's really all that matters. Making sure my family's happy and they enjoy what I'm doing and they don't like despise me for it. Like, and I do have to kind of credit that back to Ben at the half marathon, who I ran with, but still, like, I just don't want to get greedy. I can get greedy later. You know what I mean? There's always many more races to get beyond 3 and see what I'm truly capable of. But this race isn't that. This race is just finishing what I started in 21.
All right. Now I'm going to say welcome back, because we just took a little bit of a break. I went and picked up my middle child from the bus stop. It's that runner dad life. So I want to ask you about being a runner and a dad, but to wrap up, to put a bow on the Marine Corps Marathon and our sub 3 journey, for other people who may be running that marathon, where can they find you / me or us for shakeout runs or at the event?
I'll be in room 306. No, I'm kidding. At the West. No. Yeah. I am running with the Semper Fi Fund team. After I met them at the Marine Corps half, and they reached out afterwards for me to join the team. So I am raising money specifically for, like I was raising money before with the run streak, but it was more just like a generalized, it'll go to the fund and then they'll choose how to use it, see fit. Now I actually have a fundraiser set up with them. I only need to raise like $150, but either way, I'm just going to kind of see how much I can raise. I haven't really been good at actually promoting that I'm doing that. But either way, they have a shakeout run that they're doing. But I've actually been in contact with the Marine Corps Marathon as well about hosting a shakeout run with the Marine Corps Marathon. So at the half, we actually hosted a shakeout run with the All Marine running team, which was really cool. Another big thing for me when it comes to races is I pretty much reach out to each race organization and try and find out if they're doing a shakeout run. I understand for some races it's just not possible, but some of these smaller ones, I always reach out and say like, hey, are you doing a shakeout run, or are you connected with like a run club? Because I'm a firm believer in, if I'm going to invite other runners to this shakeout run in an area I'm not from, it's like, how can I plug them into a community that they can like go and be a part of? And so I reach out to the Marine Corps Marathon at the half, and I show up and they're like, are you the influencer? And I was like, I guess. But so I reached out and...
Me?
Yeah. Did you not tell by the GoPro? But either way, it was really fun. And they actually want to start making it like a part of, I think, the half. And so with the full, we're working right now. Who knows what's actually going to happen, if it will come out, or I'm not sure. But I'm in works right now with the Marine Corp Marathon to try and get something going where they do like a group shakeout run the day before at the, like, meet at the expo, run, 20 minutes, whatever, 3 minutes. I don't know what the shakeout run will be. But so that's still in the works. So maybe, I don't know, like, where you can find it. I'm assuming you and I will connect. We'll probably be posting on socials as well. I also am like a huge one of like, hey, if you see me, just stop me and like give me a high five. You know what I mean? Like whatever you're comfortable with, or you could just do nothing. You could take like you could zoom in with your phone from across the street and have a photo forever. I don't know, whatever you want to do. But I'm one of those, like, I like to meet people and make friends. I'm not one who goes and follows everyone who follows me. But like once I've met you and like we've chatted, that's like a whole different, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, if you see me or Andrew, just say hi.
Micro influencers, but a macro heart, whatever that means. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So
I think that might be a health condition.
It could be. I was going to say, I did stop. I went and picked up my middle child. As a runner, as a dad, the whole reason for me starting to talk to other runners was like, how do you find the time? Let's just put it out there on the internet for any other sort of runner dad, runner mom, runner parent who is looking to run and also show up for their kids who have jobs. What are like best practices to make it work? Because that's something I always ask other people, and I feel like I want to share that, but selfishly I also want to know best practices. So yourself, your dad, can you tell me how you find the time to run and dad?
Yeah. I know this is a sidestep real quick, but I'm laughing because we talk about finding time to do something for yourself. And I'm on the MacBook, and so my iMessages will come up. And my wife just texted me that my son like covered our daughter completely in sand, and I didn't really read the rest, but the last sentence was, "I'm so mad." And so I'm thinking now is like, great, I'm in the basement making a YouTube interview for running, and I'm about to talk about how you should like make it work for everyone so that everyone's happy. But I'm down here.
Yeah, my wife woke me up. She woke up and took the kids today, and then I got to sleep in. And then I'm going to wake up early and I'm going to take them both. So she's going to sleep in for 2 days. So she got a 2-for-1 special, when I carry it. I was like, oh, appreciate it. Yeah. So,
yeah.
All right. What are some best practices for you for finding the time to run and to dad and to juggle work and all the like?
There's a few things that I try and really do. And I talked about it in a YouTube video where I talk about like making time for travel or just finding the time. One is utilizing what I like, the McMillan's time-based running. So I like time-based running primarily because for most of the runs, you have just a set time that you need to run for. So no matter how you're feeling on that day, you know you're only going to be gone for a set amount of time. And then your significant other is also a little more on board. The second thing is just finding, like, I had to become more disciplined in making sure, like, if I want to get X, Y, and Z done in the day, then like I need to make my schedule work for those things, not expect everyone else to work for me. A lot of that comes into waking up before everyone's awake to get in, like you had mentioned in the beginning about like the lifting. I usually wake up before everyone's awake and get that part of the workout done. And then on my lunch break, I work from home, but I kind of treat the lunch break as like if I were going into the office, I wouldn't be home anyways. So I typically try and get most of my runs done on the lunch break. It does help that I work from home because I can pretty much get dressed, head out the door, and get back. And most of my runs are within 60 minutes. So I'll do that on my lunch break. So I try and make everything happen in times where I wouldn't have been around the kids anyways, so that when I'm done with my entire work day, working like a 9 to 5 in marketing, that I'm fully there for the kids and the wife to be able to be a part of things or doing other things within like the community or anything like that. So it really is about, if I'm going to make this work, because we had kind of talked about this before, but like you don't need to run a marathon to stay healthy. So like if I'm going to pursue this sub 3 where you have to put in a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it's not just like show up on race day if I'm going to do all of this and be somewhat selfish, then I need to try and be selfless in other ways for the family. So something I heard a long time ago that I really utilize to kind of be my North Star is I once heard someone say, I don't want to cross the finish line of a race and have my family say, thank God that's over, let's never do that again. I want to cross the finish line with my family saying, thank God that was so much fun, let's do it again and maybe we'll join in the next time. If I missed the goal because I didn't put enough mileage in, but I was there for my family in other ways, I was there like for work, I wasn't failing other parts or burning the candle on both ends, then like I'm okay with that.
I've figured out that if I don't get up early and I don't get the run in, the world will conspire and throw so much on my plate later in the day that sometimes it just becomes next to impossible to get the run in. But just like being okay with it and then saying like, cool, this like labeling time and then telling my kids like, this is dad time. Like right now we're talking, their kids are all playing together like right outside this door and like I hear them wrestling a little bit. I'm just waiting for like a thunk. And then like some crying, and then it was like, uh-oh, it got a little too rough, you know. But I remember hearing someone talk about like at the start line, listening to someone else saying, well, this and this, and it's like, what a bunch of excuses and whatever. It's like, they're not excuses, like they're just my family, you know what I mean? They're priorities in my life. And if it means that I run less fast, then it's okay, because I said it before, I don't want my kids to show up when I'm long gone and they're old and come to my headstone and be like, that's my dad. He's pretty fast for an old guy.
He ran a 2:59.
Yeah.
Be cute. And then they lay the Boston jacket on your headstone.
Yeah. This is a little unicorn.
One other thing I'll add that I've also gotten really, like, I would say is like strategic about is removing distractions. So another thing I've really made sure on is that when it's the time to be present with my kids. So like one thing I did was I pretty much turned off all notifications on my phone for almost all my apps, except like the most like certain things. And I have like time limits on my phone as well. So my phone shuts pretty much everything down at 8 p.m. and then it doesn't turn back on until 7 a.m. And so the main idea is, and then I have like time limits on certain apps. So like after using it for an X amount of time that I've set, the app basically shuts down and you can like ignore the limits. But again, it's back to that like being present. So like I'm doing this, I don't then want to go upstairs to help put out a fire with my wife, and I'm like scrolling through Instagram or looking at the YouTube video I posted. So it's like there's other things that, again, like making those sacrifices of like, how can I set myself up to be successful at this if I really want this, and I also want to stay married and like my kids to not look back at the childhood. And some people may think it's extreme, but for me, I know how my brain works, and I'm always already like, I'm one of those, if I'm trying to go to bed and all of a sudden something pops in my brain of like, man, what is the stack height of this shoe? You know what I mean? Because like I'm making a video for it soon. And then it's like, I can't go to sleep until I go look at it. So how can I remove those as much as possible to make sure that I'm present with my children instead of looking up the stack height of some random running shoe when I should be playing with them?